Well, I want to say a huge welcome and thank you to everybody who's already here for what we are anticipating will be a really fascinating conversation. It is called the value conversation, and it's about how we piano teachers um, decide to set our fees on an individual basis. Now, I'm delighted that joining me this morning is the lovely Sharon. Hello,
Hello, Sally. Hello,
Sharon.
everyone.
And who's, of course, the co founder and director, along with me, of the Curious Piano Teachers. And we are thrilled to have been joined by Angie Say, who, welcome, Angie.
Hello.
And Angie is a long-time member of the Curious Piano Teachers. And those of you who aren't members, she hops around quite a few of the Facebook groups offering absolutely wonderful advice on this, that, and the next thing. So welcome, Angie. And we're also joined by Gareth Brook. I do say it that way. It is Brook, isn't it? Yeah. And Gareth is also a member of the Curious community. And although he's a more recent member than Angie, again, he's bringing to our community a wonderful, thoughtful approach where it's thought-provoking posts from him, get us lots of conversation going. Now, just to put this whole meeting into context, I think it was back in just before Christmas, actually, we had a member who was talking about lesson fees, and he discovered that a fairly, actually, I think it was one of his students, had started to give lessons and was actually charging more than he was. And he was a pretty experienced teacher. And a whole conversation ensued from this. That we said, well, I said, oh, I think we need to have a meeting about this. I think we need to have a bit of a symposium. And this is it. This is our symposium to talk about lesson fees. And we were just saying before we started then, before you all came on, there isn't a right way. There isn't a right way, but there are a number of considerations I think that we all need to have in mind. And hopefully we're going to be exploring those. So this meeting is going to work in a little bit of a different way. I am chairing the meeting, and in a moment, I'm just going to do a very short presentation to kind of give an introduction and an overview with some data and stuff. And then after that, we are going to be having presentations from Gareth, followed straight away by a presentation from Angie, and then followed by a presentation from Sharon. And these will run back to back. So if you have thoughts or questions, then you can put them in the chat, please do, or jot them down, but we won't be interrupting the presentations. At the end of that, I will do my best to just very quickly summarize it, and then we'll be opening the floor to further discussions and questions that you might have. And if we feel the need, we can go into breakout rooms because there are quite a few of you here already. So we can always break ourselves down into breakout rooms. But we will be finishing the conversation no later than 11:15. Okay. So we'll just see how it goes from there. So let me start off by just sharing a very straightforward presentation that I've just put together. And this is based on data from my PhD survey and also other surveys that have been around. You might have seen that ABRSM, for example, just 2-3 weeks ago published their latest Making Music survey. And that has collected certain aspects of the data. The difference about my data, which was done in 2010, although published in 2013, which is why you see the date changed, is that mine is specifically piano teachers. All the other data from ABRSM and ISM is not specifically piano teachers, it is instrumental teachers. However, piano teachers are in the majority of respondents. So you can take that as being a lot of piano teachers, but mine is specifically. So in terms of age range, my survey showed that the majority of piano teachers were aged 46 and over. So 40, sorry, not the majority, but just under half, 47%. Okay. And the making music one, what are we, 15 years later, is showing similar trends. The ages are slightly different. That's just because we all have different points that we ask about. So they're saying that 55 plus age respondents were 44%. So you can see a lot of instrumental teachers and piano teachers are in the older age range. You could say for this that it's not representative, and we did talk about this yesterday in the meeting with David Barton, because what we're not getting as respondents to this survey is a lot of the younger teachers. And that can be because of various reasons, like they might not perceive themselves, and these are music graduates usually, and they might not yet perceive themselves as a teacher, and they still perceive themselves as a performer. And the perception of a teaching role maybe comes later. We can only have a hypothesis about that, but that is probably the likely scenario. 75%, and this is fairly, although I've used my research here, this is absolutely borne out. It's not just me saying this. 75%, around that number, of teachers are female. Instrumental teachers are female. The reasons for that are many and varied. I haven't got time to go into it today, but that is the case. Okay, so these are the fees from my survey done in 2010, and I pulled together a whole list of them. I did research going back to 1983, where it was £8.90 per hour. These are piano teaching fees. Louise Gibbs did a 1993 survey, £11.75 an hour. These are the averages, by the way. These are the averages. That's all we can talk about here. The ISM average back in 2011 was £30 an hour. Okay, so obviously we've got quite a leap there between 1993 and 2011, both in time, but also in the fees. The ISM now is back to instrumental teaching, remember. And then, oh yeah, I've got two 1993s. All right, that's not supposed to be there. So we'll go on. So in my survey in 2010, 86% of my respondents charged £15 or less for 30 minutes. So you can translate that into £30 or less for an hour. The mean fee for this was £13.50, the mean fee. And that means when I took all my respondents, I added all the figures together, and then I divided it by the number of respondents. That's what gave me that mean fee of £13.50. So from the highest to the very lowest, divided by the number of respondents. The ISM survey, the latest one in 24 to 25, the median fee here, all instrumentalists, was £40. Median, and of course, again, this covers the whole country. Yes, we can look into detail of areas, and there is a big difference between London and the Northeast, Northwest where I am, big difference in fees, but we're looking at the whole country at the moment in the UK. The median fee, and the median fee means it's the one in the middle. When you look at the whole fee data set, it's the one that comes in the middle of the whole thing. So the median fee for the ISM was £40. That was the latest survey. Yes, this was an interesting statement that came out of my survey, that 73% of all my respondents set the fees according to the going rate. Yeah, the going rate for their area and also for what was going on. And I think when I did my survey, the ISM weren't publishing their yearly fee survey. So there was less awareness of what the going rate was, possibly as a national going rate. And I think there's just one or two more. That's an interesting one, isn't it? This came under 4% of respondents said that income. Sorry, Oh, yes, 4% of respondents said that income was an important motivation factor in choosing to teach. So this came under a question about what was your motivation to teach the piano? Which means that for 96% of all my respondents, it wasn't an important motivational factor. Okay. That wasn't the first thing they thought of when they were asked, why do you teach the piano? It wasn't to earn money. And this is the last slide, qualifications. Again, this is just the very broad picture of my respondents. 56% had music degrees, 19% had other kind of degrees, non-music, and 24% had no degree at all. So what have we got there? We've got 34, we've got about 43% had no music degrees. So I'm just going to stop my share. For me, that gives an important back frame to what we're talking about, because we've got female piano teachers, probably in the older age range, who are, one can assume, you can hypothesize again, going into teaching maybe later in life, after you've had a family. Again, historical reasons for this, all sorts of things going on here. But just to give you some background information there. So now I'm going to hand over to Gareth, and I'm going to spotlight Gareth and ask him to unmute. And Gareth, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. So my
oh, we can't hear him.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So I was it's interesting, like 75% of teachers are female, and that exactly makes up our panel, doesn't it? I am 25% of our panel. I have a fairly unusual career behind me, and my job is slightly different to, I think, what most of you guys are doing, but I still think I've got some useful, interesting things to share. And I've called my presentation, What I Learned from My Weird Career. So after I studied at Oxford, was very burnt out and quite depressed by the end of it, and basically kind of dropped out. I went back home to live with my parents and taught a bit of piano, was completely unqualified to do so beyond my music degree. And I worked with my dad milking cows, and I also set up a chicken farm. And so we're going to I'd like to play a little game with you guys. We're going to figure out how much you would pay for a half dozen of my eggs. So picture you're driving around a corner in West Wales, the sun is shining, and as you come around the corner, you see a big slope, and on that slope, there's a beautiful wooden hut, and there's 100 chickens in there with their cockerel looking after them, and you can see them grazing contentedly. And it's south-facing slope, so it gets the sun all day, and you've got trees above it. How much would you pay for half a dozen eggs? Could you write the number that you would pay for those half dozen eggs in the chat? So you can see the chickens that are laying the eggs that you're going to eat. Yeah, so we've got 2. What else have we got? 3. So already we've got a bit of variety in prices. So, and I think that illustrates that, yeah, £3. And Diane has said that she currently pays £3. And I wonder whether those are from the supermarket, and would you pay more because you can see the chickens where you're getting them? Sarah, that's a great question. There was no fridge, so it was not particularly food safe. This is a long time ago. Now, I didn't know how much to charge, and I looked at what the prices were in the supermarket, and I decided to charge £1 for the eggs. Yeah, would pay a premium. Marion, that was what I was hoping, was that people would pay a premium because they could see the chickens. And I initially charged what then seemed like quite a high price, which was £1. But over the course of time, that proved to be far too little. And actually, I looked up what that would be if I adjusted for inflation. It'd be £1.61. Oh yeah, so that's really interesting. So Marion buys them from a farm, and she pays £2.80. So I would have charged £1.60 in West Wales for that, and Marion's paying £2.80. So that's quite a big difference, isn't it? That's, I think, quite an interesting fact, because I had to just make a decision based on what information I had. After I was a chicken farmer, I then dropped out even more and I backpacked around North America and Canada and volunteered on organic farms. And I'm going to tell a story now, which I learnt from one of the guys who run those farms, which I've already told in the group. So you may have already heard this. Jim was the guy that I was staying with. Yeah, that's really cheap, isn't it? So Gillian's just said 150 for a half dozen. It's interesting. So I was backpacking on this farm. It was in North America. Jim was a self-described hippie. He'd been to Woodstock, the original Woodstock. He'd built his own house out of wood in the middle of the Californian forest. And he used to sell hand-carved sculpture at these various festivals. And he was really struggling to make sales when he first got started. And he had several festivals where he struggled to make even break even. And then after a few, the vendor sitting next to him said, "You know what your problem is, Jim? You're not charging enough. People think there must be something wrong with them." And Jim tried to argue that he wanted his art to be in people's homes regardless of whether they could afford it, which is a very noble thing and it's very reasonable. And the guy sitting next to him said, "Well, try doubling the price. And if you see someone who clearly can't afford it but would really like it, you can always give them a better deal." And Jim did that, put up his price by, I think he doubled it, I'm not entirely sure. And immediately his sales increased. And that's because we can set people's perceptions of our values by the way we present ourselves. And Jim's message to me, coming from an old hippie as well, was you really can't afford to undervalue yourself. And I've really taken that with me. And I clearly did it when I was working as a chicken farmer. After there was a few twists and turns, and then I ended up working as a youth hostel worker, and I started managing youth hostels. And my favourite one probably was, there's a little youth hostel in Lulworth Cove, which is on the Dorset coast. It's a 36-bed hut. I think it's fair to call it a hut. It's really made out of wood. And I thought it would be quite fun to do a similar thing with the pricing here. And this time I'm going to describe what I want you to do, but I don't want you to hit return until I say. So this is a hostel. You get a 4-bed room, which is made up of 2 bunk beds. You get the room to yourself. You have to make the beds when you arrive. You do not have a toilet in your room. You do not have a shower in your room. You do not have a sink in your room. Everything is down the corridor, which you have to go to and share with everybody else. So there's potentially 32 other people that you're sharing these facilities with. Please write down in the chat, but don't send yet, how much you think you would be prepared to pay for a private 4-bed room in a youth hostel in Lulworth Cove, which is beautiful if you know it. It's got this wonderful clam-shaped bay, and the sea is a special colour of blue. And once you've done that, please send the message now. So hopefully we'll get some good. Yeah, so Diane said 100 for 4, Rachel said 50, Janet said 60. Hi, Janet. Gillian said 70, 50. So it's quite a big spread there. Lou's 50. 45. Yeah, it's really interesting. So I wasn't in charge of the pricing there. The head office did that. But the lowest I ever saw the room go for was £36. This was back in about 2012. And the highest I ever saw it go for was about £120. And that's because no one wants to go to Lulworth Cove on a Tuesday in December. And everybody wants to go there in July when it's sunny, you know. And even though it's the same object, there are things that affect the value that are not maybe what we're in control of, and I think that's worth bearing in mind. So what I learned from doing that was mainly from talking to people in the head office who discussed pricing, and they had who set the pricing, and they had various key metrics for figuring out what the pricing should be at different times. And I think a really fascinating question for us is, what is our key metric, or what are our key metrics when we are setting our prices? I think that's a really interesting question. And I would suggest that what everybody else charges is not a good key metric for what you set your price as. I don't think that's a good way of doing it. And actually, I tried to do that with my eggs. I just sort of copied the supermarkets, and I got it wrong, I think, actually. I think I could have charged a lot more. Sally's stats suggested that 73% of us go off the market rate, and I think that's a mistake. I don't think any of us are average. And I think if you really scrutinize what the word average means, it really falls apart very quickly. So my key metric is student retention. I think if we have got students that stay with us for a long time, we can probably afford to put our prices up. And if we have a higher turnover of students, then I think we may need to consider whether we are charging too much. I'm not sure about that, but I think that's an interesting consideration. And I don't think that gets talked about enough. So when I'm thinking about my student retention rate, which is pretty good, there are a few things I do take into account, and there are a few things that I don't take into account. I do not take it into account if a student moves away, because that's not useful data. I don't take it into account if they stop having lessons because of health reasons or family reasons. I do take it into account if they stop having piano lessons because they want to do another activity, because particularly if it's a non-musical activity. So if kids decide to do rugby rather than piano, I kind of feel I failed a little bit, because I want them to love music, I want them to love the discipline of practice, and I want them to love turning up and making progress with their music. And that's what that's the value that I'm trying to give them. And hopefully they will pay the price that I want. I do have a very high student retention rate, and that's because of various factors, I think. And my student retention rate is weirdly high, I think, despite the fact that I've really dramatically increased my prices since I started teaching in Frankfurt about 10 years ago. I got my pricing wrong again at the start when I moved here. It was much too cheap, and I did the maths. I've increased it by 60% in the last decade, which is extremely high, and I've managed to keep most of the students throughout that process. And I've also made other changes in my studio. So when I first moved here, I didn't have a studio at all, and I just came to people's houses with my bike. I love cycling, and they got that for free. I just cycled to them because I wanted clients. Then that became quite clear to me that wasn't really sustainable, because I was losing a lot of money. Well, I was losing a lot of potential money while I was cycling around. So I started charging a commuting fee, which was slightly controversial, but I managed to persuade almost everybody to stay. And I now charge at a rate of 25% of my tuition fee as a commuting fee. And another big change that I made was when I got this studio that I'm in now, and I didn't lose a single student when I got a studio. I was really pleased about that. And now many people come to me. I don't even go to them anymore. So I was thinking about why I think my retention rate is high, and I think part of it is that I'm fairly good at what I'm doing, and part of it is that I've got a few unique selling points, which I will discuss a little bit later, because I think the unique selling point thing is a really important thing to think about. But I think another thing that's really crucial is that I'm quite choosy about who I work with, and I do only work with people who I have a nice connection with, who I get on with. And that means that it's easy for us to have fun together, and it just creates a nice atmosphere. Oh God, I've got 5 minutes, Sally's saying. So I think that's really valuable, and people want to come here because they have fun with me. Another thing that I think is important is that my students are used to me raising prices, because I do it every year, because I adjust for inflation every year. And when I do make bigger price hikes or bigger changes in the way I teach, then I take the time to justify why I've done it. So I did make a big price hike when I got the studio, and there's obvious reasons for that, for example. USPs, I think it's a terrible bit of jargon, but it's actually a really useful concept. I think we all really need to think about what makes us unique as teachers, and we are all unique as teachers. And maybe you don't yet use your uniqueness as much as you could, but you are all unique. And I think one of the things we really need to try and avoid doing is being an average teacher. So I have a couple of unique selling points. One is the Oxford degree, that just helps. One is the fact that I teach in English, in native English in Frankfurt, which is a very German city. There's a lot of expats here. That definitely helps me charge more. Another one is that I'm a published composer and my music gets streamed quite a lot. And these are unique things. But there are other things that I consider to be unique selling points that I think we can all do. One of them is that, like I mentioned before, that sense of connection with students. I think many teachers are really excellent at creating a space where their students feel welcome and safe and happy. And I think in a world where, in such a difficult world that we live in, where there's so much bad stuff going on, I think that's really valuable to students. And I think it's really important that we recognize that that's valuable and that we are prepared to consider charging accordingly. And like I said earlier, that doesn't mean that you charge everybody the top rate of your studio. You may give discounts to people who you know need it, but I think that you'll find that people will be willing to pay a bit more. And then there's just a side note on that. I've noticed that I've got a couple of very wealthy students, adults, and I've noticed that since I've started working with them, that's often led to word of mouth taking me to other wealthy adult students. And I think that's really important to bear in mind. And it hasn't stopped me from working with less well-off people as well. And I think it isn't a unique selling point, but it is important to me, is that my studio is a place where people like to be. I make it mine. You can see there's all these plants. There's this artwork. That's all of these are by my wife, and it's just a calm place. And one of my teenagers said to me recently, "I love coming here because I feel so calm," and that was a real sign that that it's a place that people want to be. Yeah, and the other thing is when I really do take time to allow students to talk about their feelings, which is valuable to them. And when I ask a student how they are and they're obviously not well, I will just allow them to talk about it until they want to change the subject. And you don't have to do that as well. That's my own thing. I've had a bit of training in that area, but I think that does increase my value as a teacher. So if I was going to give you homework, I love giving teachers homework, I would say, think about what your student retention rate is. And if it's high, I think you can seriously consider raising your fees. You may not do it immediately, but you should think about it. If it is low, I think you should get help improving your student retention rate. And there's lots of people who can help you with that. And I think being in the Curious Piano Teachers would be a great way to do it. And I think you should also think about what your unique selling point is, despite the fact that it's a terrible bit of jargon. And I think you should make your studio reflect who you are. And I think that will lead to students valuing you more and wanting to spend more time with you. And everything benefits when we're making connections with people. And that is the end of my presentation.
Hey, lovely. Thank you so much, Gareth. And sorry to rush you on there, but we've got to be really concise. So we're going to go straight on then to Angie. I'm going to replace the spotlight there. And Angie, over to you. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Now, I find myself nodding very enthusiastically with everything that Gareth says had just presented. And I think even though we might use different words to convey our presentation today, I think you might find similar themes when I present myself. So I am purposely not sitting in my studio today to join you, because 75% of us are female. And I come from a very checkered past too. I wasn't always a piano teacher. I was a hotelier, I was a chartered marketer. I trained then as a business consultant. I spent close to 12 years traveling around the world, advising businesses how to make money and how to be more profitable. So today I am kind of in my kitchen, but I don't have any other offices, but definitely outside my studio, because this is where I come to think about the business side and the commercial side of doing business. So unlike Gareth, I did make a conscious decision to change my business and change my career path and be a professional teacher. So this is about 15 years ago. And I decided that I was going to stop being a business consultant in a city, and I was going to be an entrepreneur, and I was going to set up a business that is profitable and will be sustainable, very much using my knowledge of advising my other clients. And I applied it to my own business planning. So today I'm going to do a business consulting type presentation with you. So this is what I normally do when I was paid, okay, to be a consultant. I'd like you to think of yourself as a startup business, okay? So today we're going to talk about a bit about value, and I'm going to take you through my business journey rather than a piano teacher journey. So for a business, this is pretty much the concept, isn't it, of doing business, especially us in the service business. So to us, time is money. How we make money is we take our hours that are available for business, we times it by the price, which is our fee that we talk about today. Now, we forget though that there are three things that decide. So in a business, you need to think about, what am I offering? And that kind of affects the price. Now, I like to think about the price as value, because that's what you came to this presentation, to our session today. It's to talk about the value. What is my offering? Is it worth this much money that I'm asking people to pay? And how much can I charge? What's the maximum I can charge for offering this service? And then the next question that I'd like you to think about is, well, can I keep doing this? Okay, now, will people keep paying me this much money for the rest of my business life? And I think what we also need to think about is, can I keep doing this though? I mean, it's no point if we spend 6 hours planning 1 hour's lesson and then charge a lot of money for it. Well, can we keep doing this? Lots of planning and lots of investment, lots of energy to be in business 5 years down the road. I probably wouldn't last a few months, I think, if I did that. So all these were the questions I asked myself before I actually set up this business. So I wanted to then talk about, share what it is. I had this special word here, a businessy word called niche. So I think Gareth referred to this as your unique selling point, okay? And the law of not being the average, yeah? Now, when I first set up, I was brand new into teaching. Yes, I did a bit of teaching when I was a university student, etc. But those things I felt don't count. So now I'm going to set up as a professional teacher. Reality is I was a newbie. There were at least 10 other teachers where I live. So I was a newbie, and I was not going to be the piano teacher for everyone. That was the number one rule that I said to myself. I will not try to be a generalist. I will be a specialist. Now, at that point in time, I was just then thinking, okay, if I was going to be a niche, what does a niche mean? Okay. So I decided I was going to be a piano teacher for young pupils. I was only going to accept pupils who are very, very young that other teachers do not accept in this area. So I would take them from age 4, and my aim personally is to keep them with me for up to 14 years. So that is retention. And that is actually my mission statement till today. So if you go to my very simple website, on the front page itself, it reads, "At this studio, we, the parents, pupils, and teacher, prioritize the love of music making and focus on developing holistic musicianship skills for life." Now, it's funny, isn't it? There's no mention of the word piano in there. Yet, this is on my front page. And I think this relentless pursuit from day one meant that I do everything, all the planning, fitting the studio, designing my space, choosing my resource. It is all with the question of, well, my decision, is it going to do that? Is it going to kind of benefit the parents and the pupils? Is it in line with this tagline? Okay. So on pricing then, just going to go back to the value. Okay. I will be honest. Now, I was a newbie, but I looked at the price, the going rate. I wasn't happy with it because I just left the consulting business, and you wouldn't want to know what the charge out rate was. It's just astronomical. I wasn't seeing all of that, but I wasn't happy to be paid at that time what I felt was basically very close to minimum wage in this area. And it was reflected in the numbers that Sally put up, because I felt that I was probably going to be paying to teach, really, because someone was going to have to look after my daughter. There's costs involved. I'm going to have to sacrifice part of my home to be the studio. I was going to have to park my car elsewhere so parents could park on my drive. Now, why would I do all that and put all that cost in if I wasn't going to make profitable business, like get some money out of it? So I decided that despite being a newbie, I was going to charge at the 75th percentile of the range. So I looked at what was the most expensive teacher in 30-mile radius. So we're looking at teachers who are mentors, who are examiners, who are like Sally, and like Sharon, and who are the conservatoire top-notch teacher, and what are they charging? I found out that they charge a lot more than the going rate. So I thought, okay, that's pretty good. It means that there is a huge difference between almost minimum wage through to the top. And I decided that, right, I'm going to go right in the middle of that, between average and the top band. So I ended up with a 75%. It was a tester because I wasn't sure at that point in time whether anyone was going to pay that rate. So what is it that I could offer? So I did not have conservatoire training. Unlike Gareth, I did not graduate from Oxford, so I couldn't stand on that. But what I could do is to look at the service. What is it that I was offering? Now, I tried to summarize that with pictures. I was going to take bits and pieces about the studio, but all I can say, there's too much to take picture of, so I can describe to you what I looked at. Now, there are lots of things that parents, who was my main customer, because I said I was going to teach children, parents are the customer. Now, there is nothing much that they can do to test me in terms of my skill in teaching. But there's a lot of things that they see and feel when they come to me for the first meeting to discuss about taking piano lessons. I also made sure that I did not say, yes, come and have piano lesson with me for every inquiry. I do not talk business on the phone. And when I first set up, I invited them to come to my studio so that we could discuss what it would be like to have a piano lesson with me. So what does it mean to specialize in the niche? So here are the things that I do. I welcome them at the door. It is a purpose-made door. It's a special entry just for pupils. It's a side door. It's secure. It is out of the public eye, so we couldn't see children coming and going from the main road. There is a waiting room, and the waiting room has got child level coat hook, place to put their books, place to put their bags, a place to sit whilst waiting for siblings, a place for parents to actually log on and catch up with business, a desk to work. And then they come into the main studio, and the studio is light, is airy. There is minimal distraction. Nothing is there, and nothing is forbidden for little children to run around. It's very, very safe. It's purpose-made. I put a note here to talk about toilet. Now, I even customized the toilet at that time because I was taking in age 4 children. The toilet had special child seat on. It had footstool for children to get to. It had easy access soap dispenser. Everything was catered for the young learner. And on display are all my resources. There are lots of toys, the lessons, the trial lesson or the consultation session. Half of it was not at the piano. It was to do with manipulatives. It was working on focus. So all the things that we take for granted as good teaching today, the multisensory learning, etc., I was demonstrating that from the consultation. And I do not say, yes, you're accepted, or I've got a space for you. They do wait for their space, even though I was a newbie teacher. So I took pupils in cohorts. I offered them friendship amongst all friends of the same age group, starting the piano lesson journey together. There was a social group for parents whilst they are waiting for the children. I also need to kind of talk about the fact that when I first started, children age 4, they're all beginners because I was new. Age 4 would have their own little group once a month. It was held on Saturday at a local community center. I would cart my mobile piano with me. Parents would sit and have coffee and watch the children work with me. So we would go through musical games, rhythm cups, music mind games, do their theory, and occasionally parents would join in some of the activities. Now, this just meant that nobody wants to quit because, oh, my friend is doing this, I'm looking forward to now. So these are the things that maybe are more available nowadays. However, when I first started more than 10 years ago, this was brand new. And I didn't come up with all this. I just looked to the States. I had a few internet mentors from the States who were very, very kind, including Susan Paradis. And she sent me lots of stuff and said, go try this out. And this is part of the reason why I'm paying this forward and sharing in lots of forums, because I think we should all be doing this and charging a premium because, you know, this is what makes us special. This is what we do as a niche. Now, how much time do I have left, Sally?
That's about it, Angie, I'm afraid.
Yes. Okay, so one thing about pricing. So I am expensive. I think Gareth may discount, but this is one principle that I do. Number one, I never discount. I do not offer sibling discount. I don't give a school rate. I don't give free lessons. I don't have a trial period. When you sign on, we sign on a contract, child, parent, and myself, and we go for quite a while. Because remember, I'm trying to keep them for 14 years. I don't have an issue with retention rate. I have put up my prices. So from when I first started, I was on the 75th percentile, but I am now approaching the top end of that level. And by no means am I an examiner, but I am just a very, very specialized teacher for teaching children, because I take them from a very young age until and through all their journey. And I have children now who are young adults and who are leaving me at age 18. So I think
I am going to have to just wrap you up
yes,
there, Angie.
yes.
Okay.
The last bit is on the sustainability. I think the whole point is that it's very low cost base for me because I don't have to market myself. So I think we can.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Angie. And we're going to go straight over to Sharon. Sharon, over to you.
Sorry, I'm just trying to stop share. There we go.
Okay.
There we go. That's it. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to start with a story. And the story is this. Back in 2010, I had met the guy who I was going to marry, and I was doing coaching work. I was working on the PTC alongside Sally, and I had people there on the course saying to me, Northern Ireland, where you're based, why are we traveling over to England for courses, which is what I had done for a whole decade and a bit before that, and had invested within that kind of decade period about £100,000 in my professional development. And that's kind of including all, not just courses, but the amount of traveling. In my 20s, I did every single course that there was going. I did so much training. I dedicated myself to bettering myself. But I decided that because of that, I needed to, I couldn't keep up the traveling. And for some reason, I felt that, okay, I can help piano teachers in Northern Ireland. But I did feel compelled to understand a little bit about setting up a business. Okay, hadn't really occurred to me within the piano teaching sphere, but the idea of doing something with piano teachers, I thought I need to set up some sort of a business. And it was, I'm kind of thinking it was around, I can't think of the exact month, but let's say 2010. And I remember putting into a Google search, business coach Belfast. Now, normally in a Google search, you get lots of responses. There were just 2. And one of them offered a complimentary consultation. So I thought, I'm going to have that. And so I headed off one morning, it was bright and sunny, like this morning, to my complimentary consultation with a girl called Lisa, a business coach. And about 3 hours later, I remember sat there thinking, this is where there's a gap. This is where piano teachers, this is the missing bit. This is one of the missing bits, big missing bits, that we don't see ourselves as a business. And the thinking that was coming through, and I mean, let's kind of get straight that what I've been doing the previous 10 years was working on myself as a music educator, as a piano teacher, developing. I had done a master's. I had, through Lucinda's invitation, gone on the kind of what was then set up to be the PTC, because I was so close to the student experience. So in terms of really developing, from my kind of grade 8 piano, that was what I was teaching with, to working with a master's at distinction level in music education, and really thinking about what was happening in terms of the education side, I realized that the business was the whole bit that was missing. And I'm going to give you 2 sentences, and this is what has changed in my life completely. This is what my Evoco business was built on. This is what the Curious Piano Teachers, I guess, in many ways came from as well. And I was just so excited. And I said, okay, so what's the next step? And she said, okay, so my monthly coaching prices start at £500 and go up to £1,500 a month. And I said to her, I'm going to get emotional, because this has been pivotal in my life. And I just said, Lisa, I can't afford that. Now, I wonder how you would have responded to that. But she was straight back and she said, Sharon, can you afford not to? Sorry. It has transformed what I have done. And at that stage, I didn't know where I was going to get the money. But I knew that this was big. And I knew that this is where piano teachers missed out. You know, the business, I'm not really a business. But I'm frustrated because of parents who don't value me and parents who don't pay me in time. And I had come from a decade of this, of working so hard and not being valued. And I can still hear her say, Sharon, can you afford not to? And it was kind of that whole, planning a wedding. I kind of knew, I could see all of the expenses, and it was just like, I just don't have £500. And I remember sitting and speaking to Philip, my now husband, about it. And he just went, I think you're going to have to do it. I think you're going to have to find the money from somewhere. You're going to have to figure in how you make it work. And I had been used to spending a lot of money on my professional development. And I will say at this point, piano teachers are not used to doing this. And all I can say is that you be purposeful about it and you will find ways to make it work. I sat and I had to work backwards. What did I need to do in order to fit this bill of £500 a month? And it changed everything. And I'm talking about reach. I mean, when I wrote my closing words on my master's research was, we need a sea change in music education. In piano teaching, obviously that was the specific area I was looking at. We need a sea change. I want to see that happening. And we're this month celebrating 10 years of the Curious Piano Teachers. And in some ways, I think the sea change has been happening. And if you were to ask me, what has made this happen? It's the business end of it. That we think, oh, it's the greedy end, it's the making money end, it's the, no guys, we get this right and everything starts to happen, is my feeling. I know I'm still going to run out of time. Piano teachers don't take business matters seriously enough. It was really interesting. Remember Sally, I think it was last year, Sally, she ran a topic survey, in terms of what do you all want? And there was a list of things and you were to vote. Don't know if you remember doing it. There was a business element in there. And do you know where it was? It was at the bottom of the pile. People weren't interested. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on. I'm aspirational. I think I have always been aspirational to some degree. Don't really know where it comes from. Gareth has talked about the farming background, really fascinating. My dad had the very first computerized dairy farm on the island of Ireland. He passed away when I was 4, and the farm was kind of everything was, the cows were sold, the computer system was abandoned. But I don't know, I've always had aspiration, I've always had a drive. I don't know whether it's genetic, or I don't know whether it was because I felt I'd broken my legs at the same time my dad had died, and there was kind of a whole issue there. And I don't know, I was always a worker. I was never particularly bright or smart. I didn't do, in Northern Ireland, we do the 11 plus. I wasn't bright enough to do that. I went off to high school. I don't have a basic degree because I kind of got a bit messed up with what I was doing. Ended up teaching piano, but ended up going, I'm not going to do anything without doing it really, really well. So there's a whole long backstory there, but I was aspirational, and I was a bit of a dreamer, and so I visualize things a lot. Always visualize, okay, and asking questions like, what do you want to earn annually? Okay, what does your business look like? I love. Angie has been talking, and Gareth has been talking about their studio environments. This month, I'm doing the May-June Curiosity Box. There are 2 videos in there. There are 2 PDFs. Please go and have a look at them because it relates to the 5-star customer experience. And that is, again, another way that you can set what you do completely apart. There is a market for this. Okay, I'm going to run through a few points. Time for money pricing. It's one of the big things that I feel we get stuck on as piano teachers. We think about just the lesson time, and of course we know it's not just the lesson time. It is the planning time. It is the how long it takes you to get your accounts prepared for your accountant. It is how long it takes you to work out your marketing, to work on your website, to work on anything that relates to your business. If you start to write it down, that's a lot of time. And it was one of the things that my business coach really helped me get to grips with. Going back to, Gareth said you can't afford to undervalue yourself. And I had all this training done. And I think this is one of the key things that I will say. And this relates directly to the curious piano teachers, I feel, because people who are in here are the ones who are hungry and learning and developing their skills. It's not the set of piano teachers who have never done a course, who just kind of work from experience but kind of stay in the background. I'm talking to the people who are on this call today and now because you're here and you are hungry to learn. And that sets you apart, way apart from most people. And it comes back to, again, in terms of what you charge, you should not be comparing with someone who is not doing the groundwork. So, coming back to, yes, this hourly rate. One of the things that I did back in 2010, 2011 with Lisa's help was I got a contract, and it was a 10-month contract. And that simply meant that you can't flit in and out. That was not how it was going to work. You had to commit to 10 months. And if the parent decided midway through that it wasn't for them, then they were needing to pay the remaining amount. That's never happened. And again, I've just been thinking about retention, and I've been going through, I have a student who's coming in afterwards. She's been with me, an adult student. She has been with me for about 12 years now. She came in at about grade 3. She's on her 3rd diploma. And it's really interesting. I mean, everything that Gareth and Angie has been saying, you know, the retention. But anyway, 10-month contract. And something that I've come across recently is your marketing should reflect, it should be getting the 2% that you want and keeping out the 98% that you don't want. And before then I had a contract of sorts, and I remember being really nervous about going out with this 10-month contract because I said people are not going to like that. Lisa said it's a limiting belief. Okay, so another thing that I just want to clarify here is in terms of mindset, an abundance mindset and a scarcity mindset. And it's, I think, very easy in this world to have a scarcity mindset. And scarcity mindset, it's these little things that pop up. Oh, but parents, but students, but other piano teachers don't do. You get the idea, okay? We can set the narrative. That is up to us. We can choose to have an abundance mindset. And for me, that's a really important thing that we need to do. And I think if Lisa hadn't been behind me and had actually pushed me, I don't think I would have done it, because I would have said, they're not going to do that, Lisa. In fact, I'm pretty sure I said those words to her, and where she just went, just do it. Just do it. And, you know, why do you have a business coach? That's why, because they've got your back. And I paid that, not, you know, back then, that was an investment. I remember then taking out another course, 12 weeks, £4,000, which kind of led to the conversation that Sally and I had about doing stuff online. Investment is a big part. And when we invest, we get the confidence to go into to do things that otherwise we'd have thought were absolutely crazy, and we wouldn't have had the confidence. So since that point, okay, 10-month contract, I have worked over the last, what's that, a decade? It's a decade, no, it's more than that now. We're talking about the last close on 15 years. I've worked with the loveliest people, the people who keep coming back time and time and time again. I think a lot of what stops us is what's in our heads. Surround yourself with the people who go, no, but you're better than that. You are worth far more than that. And you will start to see things differently. Looking to see, yeah, I mean, it's already been touched on, that point of working with people who you like working with, yeah. And I know sometimes we do feel, okay, in terms of services, it is only the people who can afford this. But let's remember as well, it's really important that we are focusing in on value-based pricing. And I've had families who have prioritized piano lessons over other things, and where they have gone, I get the value in that. And you know what? When people get the value, they are prepared to work at it. And don't we all know what happens? Okay, you give people things for free. I'm sure you've got any amount of courses for free, and they're sitting there. You done them? Nope. Why? Because they're free. You don't value them. You pay money for something, you pay good money for something. You're going to work to get the value out of it. And I have had piano parents who have worked to get the value out of it. So, Sally, I don't know how I'm doing for time.
No, I'm just about to come in and say
keep going forever.
No, that's as could we all, but
We're gonna wrap.
that's about it. I did send you a couple of messages and was just about to come in and say, that's it, Sharon.
I didn't even see the messages, so you just needed to come in and say to me.
And Gareth has just managed to get his way back in. So I'm just going to add Angie and myself and Gareth back into the spotlight, because I think you will all agree that actually that has been a totally oh, there's a Gareth, totally fascinating. Sorry, I'm not quite concentrating, as you can tell. Totally fascinating hour of presentations. And although each and every presenter, the three of you have said it in a different way, actually you've all really emphasized the same point over and over. And I loved Gareth getting us thinking about eggs at the beginning, and that got us all off to a good start. And I think you set the ground for us, Gareth, by asking us what are our key metrics when we talk about pricing. I thought that was really, really crucial. And this idea of student retention actually did set the ground for what we need to think about, and certainly got me thinking in a very different way. And just looking up the word metric, a metric is a system or a standard of measurement. So it's how we measure what we do. And also, making sure that you've got that USP. And I love the phrase, avoid being an average teacher, because none of us are average, but know what your USP. So, and I think the homework that everybody was set to go away and think about, what is your student retention rate? Because that will tell you a lot, I think. And then on to Angie, just presenting it in a different way. And I love the diagram you showed, and that you know, price and service and niche, and it just shows we have so much to learn from everybody in our piano teaching community. And people like yourself, Angie, you just bring this different lens into what we do. And, as somebody who isn't from a business background, it's kind of, oh, is that what business is about? Because I still, just play around at the edges, really. And I did love this idea of your USP, your niche was specializing in those young beginners. And the depth that you'd gone to, down to the size of the toilet seat, in thinking about that was just, oh my goodness me, because I think I'm typical of so many people who fall into teaching, especially people who come from music education or come from music, and we have no idea at all about business, and we just fall into it. And that sort of thing would never even cross our minds until now, clearly. And that you were charging, I love this sentence as well, despite being a newbie, I was going to charge in the 75th percentile of fees. So it's getting away from this idea of what others are charging. And I know that conversation has been going on as well down here, but getting away from that and actually thinking, what do I need? And again, retention being crucial and key to what you're thinking. It's not, are you signing up for lessons this term? It's, you're here now for the next 14 years of the journey, or however many. It's so different to think about it, and so fresh for us all. And also, I just made a note, I don't know whether people took this on board, but on the phone, I did not talk business on the phone. Yeah, you don't have those slightly uncomfortable conversations about cost and worth and things on the phone, and end up justifying, feeling rather guilty that, oh, and I charge, by the way, it feels uncomfortable. And the cohorts as well, and I've always loved that idea. And then on to Sharon.
On that one, Sally. I think the best time to talk about price is once you've already made the
Sorry, Gareth. Can I just finish summarising, and then we'll try and bring other things in. So, and then for Sharon, can you afford not to? Just so deep for you, Sharon. That is. But then you said at the end with your MA, we need to see change. And that's exactly what we do, still need to see. We need to see change. And all of us here need to be that change that we want to see. We all need to exhibit that, really. And this idea that of this 5-star experience, I feel is exactly what Angie and Gareth were doing, that they are providing a 5-star experience. So curious piano teachers, do go and have a look at the latest Curiosity Box. If you're not yet a curious piano teacher, I'll share the discount code that we've got currently. Do come and be part of that change, because curious piano teachers in 10 years is definitely helping to change that conversation about it. It's not happening enough yet. And Sharon, also, that idea of mindset, and we've been taught, I think mindset is the other thing that's run through this, that we need a different mindset, not scarcity, but, oh, what do others do? Oh, what are others charging? Oh, what is the going rate? But think abundance, and yes, be the change you want to see. Don't just follow the herd, be the leader of the pack. Angie decided to be the leader, even though she was feeling she didn't really have the experience, but she knew she's made it her job. And Sharon made it her job to be a leader, a thought leader, and spent a lot of money on her own professional development. And Angie has as well. I know she has. And Gareth has in a different kind of way, I think. So I think this narrative that we need to change is down to all of us, but very much it's down to us as individuals. So if I was to take 3 words out of this, actually 2 words I'm going to take. One is retention, and the other one is that mindset. How do we just shift that mindset together and go away and have a look at the retention that of your students? That would be my summing up of it. Sorry, Gareth, to shut you down there, but I'm just conscious time is already 11:15, and I think we could. I did think about making this a whole morning, and I thought, oh no, that's far too much. But actually, we could very easily do that. So just quickly round to the people, to Gareth first, if you just want to come in.
Yeah, so there's 2 things. One, apologise again, blundering in like a numpty. I think the best time to talk about money is a bit like what Angie's saying, is once you've already persuaded them that they want to have a lesson with you. My experience is if people ask you about money up front, then actually they're probably not the client you want to have. Because you want to connect with them on music. And then a bit like Sharon's experience with the business mentor, like she had a great meeting and then she's like, right, well, I've got to find a way to make this work. And that's how I do it with my students. And the other way to say I do something very similar to Sharon. I'm like, well, you can have a 90-minute lesson, which is going to cost you this much, or you can have a 60-minute lesson that's going to cost you this much, or you can have a 45-minute lesson that's going to cost you this much. And look, I start with a high one. I've already sort of set a high bar, and then people usually go for a lower value one, but they often upgrade to a higher value one later. And I think that's a really useful way of approaching pricing. And I don't even talk about 30-minute lessons because I hate 30-minute lessons and I don't want to teach them. That's me.
Okay. Thank you so much, Gareth. Yep. Angie, did you want to come and say something?
I want to explain why the toilet. That's very important.
Now, yeah, go on.
Yes. So if you are a parent paying premium one-to-one lesson for your 4-year-old, 4-year-old have weak bladders, they want to go to the toilet. Okay. And every minute counts in their expensive lesson that they're paying because it's new in the early days. They haven't experienced the value yet. So you have to make it easy, in and out, and successfully. And the toilet is right next to my piano. So it's from that. Now, nowadays, I don't have any young ones anymore. They're all there. So in a couple of years' time, I'm going to have to do a whole cycle's rebirth of my cohort. So the toilet's no longer important. But my studio today bears zero resemblance to what it was 10 years ago when I start. I mean, the pegs and things like that are out there, but I've continued to invest in it. The training that I go on, yes, Ellie, I'm kind of like your frequent flyer, isn't it? I'm a frequent flyer miles with PTC, with this and that. And I think that's the thing, though. If you are very clear about what you want to deliver to your pupils, then you are able to take that investment money and put it exactly what you need to continue to be the specialist. And you will always be ahead of any other teachers for teaching that market that you want to teach.
Yeah. Thank you, Angie. Yeah, beautiful. Sharon?
Yeah. Just wondering how I want to sum this up. I think what I'm going to say is that if you're on the call today and you are currently not happy with what you're being paid, write things down and be very purposeful. So, for example, I mean, one question I had was, what do you want to make a year? And I think I'm not going to go through because we're out of time, but it'd be really interesting, just to see, in the same way that Gareth asked us to put in the prices. I wonder what we'd all put. I mean, would any of us, be putting in, what would it be? Would it be 30K a year? 65? 120? And here's the thing, whatever you set your mind to do, you can and you will do it. Really interesting that Gareth and Angie have had previous experiences of things. I'm kind of the other way around, because just this week, my husband, probably why I'm so emotional and a total wreck, but I've been with him on a journey, and just this week he has opened a brand new dental clinic. It's about $750,000 investment. That's kind of, that's been a whole space. I have learned what's in the curiosity box. That learning has come from a guy called Chris Barrow, who is the #1 dental business coach in the UK. We pay £750 a month for that. And I mean, you want to see dental bills? I mean, another interesting thing, I want to wrap up, but people come to us and say, so membership of the Curious Piano Teachers is yearly, it's £297. Today, it's £197. People still come to us and say, it's very expensive. I really despair, and it is why there are issues and why piano teachers are not happy with what they're making. Okay,
in the UK particularly.
In the UK in particular. £197 for annual. This is not a sales pitch here. I'm very serious about a point here. £197 is not a lot of money. I came out of the convenience grocery store the other evening with milk, bread, cheese, bottle of bleach, packet of biscuits. Okay, 15-20 quid. Okay. Now, I don't know what people are charging here, but the next time you do a shop and you come up with a kind of, that's what I charge for an hour or a half hour, and that's what you're worth. We really seriously need to think about this. We've had a new dental therapist start with us this week, who has come from somewhere where I think the pricing has been an issue. And at the end of the day, when she just went, they just said, yeah, that's fine, they'll book another appointment. She said the money has not come up. And I'm kind of thinking, yeah, because that's my mindset has been put on the training that I've delivered for front of house. I've learned so much. And I'm kind of, and as I say, doing this month's Curiosity Box, I'm bringing it back because of what I'm learning and what I'm struggling through. And it's a struggle. it's a struggle. I mean, I think I remember doing Let's Play, Sally. I remember saying that's been the hardest. There were nights there where I felt very unwell and getting the final videos sorted. Guys, if you're wondering about Let's Play, it's all there. We spent about £10,000 on it because we got a professional videographer to do it and all the rest of it. It's there. Please look at it if you've not looked at it. But yeah, anyway, I could go on, but I'm going to stop there.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Angie. It truly has been a remarkable, I feel, 90 minutes nearly. We have gone on. And
can I just say, value starts here.
Yeah.
You need to value yourself.
Angie said something wonderful. Let me just find it in a comment here. Expensive equals when customers had to pay more than the value you offer. That is what is expensive, when it's not giving the right amount of value. But I hope this might be the start of shifting the conversation. I can feel myself going, oh, well, okay, let's see how we can move on this, because yesterday's conversation with David Barton was equally as kind of shifting of ground. And this month is called Stronger Together, because that's what I believe. And I think this is a wonderful example of actually when we come together and we work together rather than in your little studios all over the place. That feels disconnected and that feels isolating and slightly vulnerable. But together, we know we can actually change what's going on and be the change that we want to see. So thank you all so much for your presentations. Really, really, really fabulous and inspiring. Thank you to everybody who has come and stayed with us all the way through. And I know you're all engaged because you're all still there. A few people have had to hop off. And if you're watching this on replay, then thank you also. And if you want to continue the conversation, we'll do that over in the new Curiosity Lounge, I think, as much as possible, because it's such a wonderful place to be. I hope you all go away and think about your own value. And I hope you all go away and think about your retention rates and how you can start to change that conversation within your studio. I just want to say thank you so much. And yes, see some of you tomorrow for our birthday breakfast. Angie, Gareth, Sharon, yes. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.